Well, hello, this is Helen Folks with the Department of Education, and I am going to be starting the USDA Child Nutrition Program production records training. Some common abbreviations that are used throughout this training will include CNP, which is the Child Nutrition Program, NSLP, National School Lunch Program, SFS for School Food Service, and USDA for the United States Department of Agriculture. Now, typically, this program is provided as part of what we use for training managers. So some of the information you may be already familiar with. However, a lot of directors have started during the time of using computer systems to complete production records. And this training will help you be able to troubleshoot those computer generated production records to make sure that the input that you're providing is accurate in terms of what's being printed out. The United States Department of Agriculture's regulations for the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs require that school food authorities must maintain daily production records for all school meals. This training provides instruction on how to meet the requirements outlined in 7 CFR 210 and 220 for completing and maintaining production records. The goals of this training module are to define the purpose and elements required for complete and accurate food production records, and to provide instruction on how to accurately complete a food production record. In terms of discussing our purpose, our first question is, what is a food production record? As an overview, a production record is a working tool that outlines the type and quantity of foods that need to be purchased and available for meal service. A food production record also serves as a source document to validate that a reimbursable meal was provided to participants in the school lunch and school breakfast programs. A food production record is required for every meal prepared and served by type. All meals claimed for reimbursement in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program must have food production record documentation as evidence of reimbursable meals provided to participants. Without this documented evidence of reimbursable meals, child nutrition program funding may be jeopardized. Now, in terms of accurate production records, we ask the question, what is the purpose of completing the production records? Because school food service claims are paid on a meal times rate basis, maintaining production records is an important responsibility of child nutrition programs. This ensures that school food service has a record to prove that reimbursable meals were served to eligible students. This session will introduce you to production records, which are a USDA requirement. And production records are part of the administrative review process and are used to validate those reimbursable meals were served. As part of the AR process, a school food authority will be asked to submit production records for an assigned week of menus for review. Completing production records will help ensure and document that meal pattern component requirements are met for each meal provided. Accurate production record keeping is essential in achieving two critical goals for program management and claim reimbursement. First, it provides food service staff with valuable information, including what specific foods and recipes to use, what quantities to prepare, and serving sizes for each menu item. It enables staff to document required information about the meals, such as actual quantities prepared, total meals served, and the number of reimbursable meals. In addition, this information may be used as an inventory withdrawal form to show what food inventory was used to prepare meals. Inventory records are a required part of managing the child nutrition program and is a distinct and separate training topic. In terms of a production record and using that as a tool for success, child nutrition program managers use production records for successful management and planning of school food service meals. A few benefits of this tool include that historical information included in the production record is useful in tracking trends, identifying student preferences, and in planning future menus that promote student participation. Next, production records may be used as a communication tool among managers and staff and serves as a meal preparation to-do list as staff prepare meals on a daily basis. And last, production records help school food service staff plan which foods to purchase and how much to prepare in order to prevent food waste while ensuring staff does not run out of food during meal service. Additionally, food production records may be used as a withdrawal form for keeping inventory records up to date. Now, this can be especially important as there is an area to designate where USDA foods are used on the production record. And as we know, USDA foods must be inventoried and monitored very closely so that it is correct upon audit. In terms of frequently asked questions, the next section of this training will cover facts regarding the who, when, where, why, and how of documentation for maintenance of production records. For the first question, let's discuss who is responsible for completing production records. While production records are the primary responsibility of the school food service manager, the record keeping typically is a group effort which involves the CMP director or supervisor as the menu planner, and records must be updated throughout the day with the assistance of school food service clerks, production staff, and also school food service staff. Also, this child nutrition program director must collect and audit food production records for accuracy to ensure documentation reflects reimbursable meals were served to the eligible students. And that is very often used upon audit to determine if meal counting and claiming activities are accurately performed. Our next question is, how often should production records be completed? And the answer is that in terms of school food service, production records must be completed daily for the school breakfast program, the National School Lunch Program, and the After School Snack Program. The After School Snack Program is considered part of the National School Lunch Program, but requires completion of a separate food production record to show the requirements of the ASP are met. Our next question is, where should production records be stored? Production records must be stored in a secure and accessible location where staff may reference past information and planned information for completion when needed. Our next question is, how long must production records be kept on file by SFAs? The answer is that production records must be kept on file for 3 years plus the current year. This question number 5 poses a scenario where different age grade groups are served at one site. How should this distinction be made in the use of production records? The answer is that this distinction must be achieved by using separate production records based on the age grade group served, or by using one production record with a very clear separation of the number of students in each grade group, as well as this distinction for the serving sizes based on those age grade groups. Now that common questions and answers have been covered, let us begin to review documentation requirements that occur before and then after meal services. Because the production record is a working document, the production record will be used in planning activities before meal production begins. It will be used during production to show food products and amounts used in preparation of the meal to meet component requirements. And then it will also be used after the end of the meal to document the number of meals served by type, as well as leftovers. There are certain sections that should be completed before meal service and certain areas that should be completed after meal service. So in order to discuss what should be completed before meal service, there are sections that at many times managers will complete the day before or even the week before meal service. So before meal services, you'll want to include the name of the site, the date the meal will be served, the meal type being breakfast or lunch, all planned menu items, including all meal menu choices, food components, types of milk, leftovers, substitutions, and other food items offered, such as condiments and other non-creditable foods. The recipe name and number, or product name and label number, should be included. And then planned serving sizes and number of servings planned for reimbursable meals by age or grade group. And if applicable, non-reimbursable meals or second meals and adult meals. Additionally, you will want to record on the production record any a la carte sales. Other areas that are important to complete during and after meal service include recording temperatures at the start and at the end of the meal service to ensure food safety guidelines are met and recorded. Also, the total amount or quantity of food prepared for each food item or menu item should be recorded. For example, the number of servings in pounds, cans, or pieces of food prepared, the amount of leftover food for each item or menu item, the total amount of food served, the number of reimbursable meals served to each age grade group, and the number of non-reimbursable meals served, for example, second meals that should be recorded on the production record, but are meals that will not be claimed for reimbursement. In terms of completing production records, there are 5 distinct areas of focus for record keeping, and these include site information, additional information about meal services that serve as helpful notes to the manager and staff, an area to document spoiled or stolen food. There's a planning section and also a documentation section. As a first step, the manager should enter the site information prior to meal service. This is located on the top right side of the production record. And this box is the name where the name of the school, the date, and manager's name are entered. The site manager must sign the record daily, indicating that the information on the production record is accurate and complete. Helpful comments regarding any changes from the typical meal service or day may be added in this notes section. For example, in this instance, there was a 6th grade field trip, which gives the manager important information about maybe why different food products were produced and why participation numbers may or may not have been different on that particular date. Under additional information, the planned meals should be completed prior to meal service, while served meals will be filled out after the meal service is over. Please take a look at the number of meals planned versus served by category. You will notice that the number of meals served is less than the number of meals planned. This is important to the reviewer because it means that if adequate quantities of components and items were planned and prepared, food service staff did not run out of reimbursable meals for service to students based on proper planning and production. In terms of grade groupings, those reflected on the production record must be circled and based on the applicable meal pattern used. The grade grouping served at this school is K through 8, which indicates the meal pattern and serving sizes used for meals. If high school is also served at the site, a 9 through 12 production record would be kept separately for that meal in order to document that the correct menu components, items, and serving sizes were provided. Overall, it is best to use a separate production record for each age grade group, although it is not required. In a school where more than one age grade group is served, the information must be very clear. And as we stated, it's best to keep separate production records in that instance. However, some SFAs or software programs utilized generate production records with a format that allows for more than one age grade group to be on one form. And in this scenario, each grade group must be clearly separated for identification of meal requirements and total reimbursable meals served for claiming purposes. In terms of breakfast menus, if multiple age grade groups are served at one school site and all students receive the same breakfast menu, one K through 12 menu along with the applicable serving sizes may be utilized, and therefore one production record may be completed for all in the grades K through 12. You will notice at the top of the breakfast production record that a K through 12 option is available to circle. When planning meals by category, the number of meals planned is recorded before the meal is prepared. This includes planned numbers for student meals as first meals only, adults or teachers, which is typically school employees, cafeteria staff, and at cost or second meals, including visitors that are not school employees. Next, the total number of planned meals is included. Referring back to prior production records, as well as looking at current activities or events, will help the manager forecast the planned meals by category. The popularity of the menu is also a great determining factor in terms of accurate forecasting of the number of meals to prepare. The number of meals served for each meal type is recorded after meal service. This section is where documentation of the number of student meals claimed for reimbursement is recorded. It is important to remember that this data must come from actual meals counted from eligible participants. This information may be obtained from meal count forms, register tapes, or computer software point of service reports. Although it is not a requirement, if you are tracking trays or a plate count, you may record the number on the bottom right portion of this table. And just as an overview, this concludes the second step in completing production records and brings us to step 3. Under spoiled or stolen food, complete the section after meal service is completed. Food that is spoiled or stolen must be recorded in this designated section. Stolen food must be reported to the authorities with a police report attached. In the fourth area, let's look at the planning section of the production record, which includes columns 1 through 4. These sections are to be completed before meal production or service. All columns must be completed and are required to document that reimbursable meals have been planned. Under column 1, indicate the number of portions planned for each menu item for the age grade group specified at the top of the production record. Include the total number of portions planned to include reimbursable student meal portions, adult meal portions, and extra sales portions. Enter the respective numbers under the appropriate meal component heading. Please note that if you are using a cycle menu, columns 1 through 4 can be copied and saved for use each time the cycle is repeated. If substitutes are made, a single line should be drawn through the meal item with the new menu item written in. Under column 2, indicate the specific menu item, recipe number if applicable, and/or the product name and corresponding CN number for the foods used to prepare the menu item. Be sure to list all planned food items, including condiments and specific meal types. If an item is a combination food item, it should be listed in each of the food component categories for crediting toward a reimbursable meal. Okay, at this stage, we are about halfway through with the presentation, and I need to take just a moment to get a glass of water, and we'll be right back. Okay, thank you for your patience. And we're returning back to column 1. And this is where vegetable subgroups and whole grain rich items are recorded. At this stage of completion, you'll want to enter your vegetables and whole grain rich items where applicable. Enter a check mark in the whole grain rich column if the product is whole grain rich. Under the vegetable group, under the vegetable subgroup area, use the abbreviations referenced at the bottom of the production record form, which include dark green, listed as DG, red orange, listed as RO, beans peas, listed as B/P, starchy, listed as S, and other listed as O. Okay, under USDA Foods, column 3, place a check marks in the box next to any food item which is a USDA Foods or commonly known as commodity item. The production records may be used as a withdrawal form to track and remove USDA Foods or commodities from inventory. Because USDA Foods inventory must be tracked separately from purchased inventory, the production records serve as documentation to assist in tracking and documenting inventory records accurately. Under column 4, indicate the planned portion size for each menu item listed in column 2, based on the grade group for which the meal is being produced. Refer to the top portion where the grade group is circled on the production record. The portion size may be indicated by a number, such as 1 corn dog, by volume, such as 1/2 cup, or by weight, such as a 3-ounce patty. Please refer to the food buying guide and use the appropriate portion size as referenced by the food item you are using. When documenting serving sizes for meat, meat alternate, and bread grain items, they should be recorded in ounces, which is a measure of weight. Examples of these items include meat, poultry, fish, cheese, yogurt, eggs, nuts or seeds, breads, and buns. Under serving sizes on column 4, the following items should be recorded in a volume or cups measures, such as 1/2 cup or 3/4 cup for vegetables, fruit, rice, pasta, cooked breakfast cereal, dry cereal, and milk. For the 5th section, which is the documentation section, we will discuss what is completed during meal production and service. This documentation section continues until after meal service is complete. Under column 5, record the quantity prepared or the total number of purchased units prepared based upon portion sizes and the number of portions planned for service. This column should include information such as numbers of total pounds or number of cases with corresponding counts per case. It also may include the total number of cans and the can size. For extras that are sold, refer to column 6 and record the total number of extra menu items or extra sale items that are sold. Under column 7, record the number of portions of food or bulk quantity of food left over based upon the portion sizes indicated in column 2. For individual portions such as hamburger patties, actual counts should be recorded. For items such as soup, bulk quantities can be listed, such as gallons, based upon the corresponding portion size. The leftover codes located at the bottom of the production record should be entered next to the amount left over to indicate plans for safe food storage, service, and/or disposal of items. Codes include freeze, refrigerate, serve next day, dispose, return to stock, served free to students. Always make sure you refer to HACCP guidelines when determining how leftover items should be handled. Under column 8, we're going to discuss food temperatures, and these must be taken at the beginning and at the end of meal service for required temperature and time controls, and appropriate handling of leftover foods. Column 8 is where food temperatures are recorded at the start and end of meal service and serves as an essential part of food safety controls and documentation. Now that we have followed the steps for completing a production record, take a look at the sample production record for lunch on the next slide. Some common errors to be aware of are highlighted with a red exclamation point on this slide. Avoid these 8 common errors for accurate production records. At the top left-hand corner, the grade grouping or age grade group is not marked appropriately. Note that when circling the correct age grade group, you're indicating the menu plan used for the group you're serving. Therefore, although you may only serve first and second graders, the K through 5 group should be circled to represent the menu plan and serving size used for those students. Under column 1, the planned number of servings must be listed next to all menu items. Often this is missed under the fruit, vegetables, milk, and condiments or extras areas. For breads and grains, a common area would be that the type of cereal, rice, or pasta is not included in the production record. Always remember to enter the specific type of grain served for crediting purposes. Also, often the whole grain or whole grain rich area is not checked to indicate that the product is in compliance with whole grain rich requirements. Under fruit vegetable, a common area is that the specific type of fruit or vegetable item is not listed. For example, listing canned or fresh fruit or vegetable is not specific enough. Also be sure to indicate the type of lettuce served. In this case, this is a breakfast production record. In the case of a lunch production record, indication of the vegetable subgroup would also be required, like for red, orange, dark green, etc. Next to the milk choice, often the variety of milk types are not individually listed on the production record. Milk descriptions must include flavor and fat content in order to demonstrate compliance with milk regulations. Condiments and extras are often overlooked when documenting production records. All menu items, including condiments and extras provided during meal service, must be listed on the production record. Under the second column, ensure that menu items listed match recipe numbers that are actually in use. Many schools will continue to use the same reference numbers from prior years, including recipe numbers, CN numbers, etc. But often these numbers change as new recipes are put into production and manufacturers change formulations and CN labels. This is also important to note, as a specific food item ordered last year may not provide the same component credit as it did the year prior due to manufacturer recipe or formulation changes. A common error for column 4 includes how serving sizes are documented. Refer to the food buying guide and meal pattern chart by meal type to ensure that the serving size for that item is listed correctly. For example, peaches should be listed as a volume measure. An example of that would be 1/2 cup. However, often an error will be made in listing a fruit in ounces, which is a volume measure. As a final note, look at the circled areas. These areas, including the grade grouping, should be completed before meal production and service, while the portions served and documentation section should be completed after meal service. Food temperatures must be taken before and after the meal service takes place. Also, the food production record should be actively in use before and throughout meal service, with final service documentation entered after the meal service is completed. Important points to remember about production records include that they must be maintained daily for breakfast and lunch. Also, there are many benefits, including menu planning, forecasting, inventory control, identifying student preferences. It can be used as a communication tool, and it can help in controlling food waste. Production records are a multi-step process, beginning with the planning section prior to meal service and concluding with the documentation section after meal service. Production records must clearly indicate that age grade groups served, they must indicate the correct age grade group served. If multiple age grade groups are served, the record must be built to accommodate those multiple age grade groups, or separate production records must be used. And finally, all sections of the production record must be completed. Reference page 2 of the production record form on the CMP website under the form section for detailed instructions. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the food buying guide. What is the food buying guide and why is it important to use for production and documentation in production records? Food production records are documented with the primary goal of illustrating on one page that a reimbursable meal was served to the student population. The food buying guide is the essential reference for food yield and crediting information for all child nutrition programs and meal patterns. The food buying guide assists child nutrition program operators, food manufacturers, and other stakeholders with purchasing the correct amounts of foods for meeting child nutrition meal programs, meal pattern requirements, determining the contribution that each food makes toward meal pattern requirements, and documentation of appropriate serving sizes on production records to illustrate a reimbursable meal was prepared and served. Another question would be what format is available for using the food buying guide. The food buying guide is available as an interactive web-based tool, a mobile app, a downloadable PDF of the food buying guide manual, and it is also printable. I highly recommend that you print the food buying guide to use as a resource and include penciled in notes and sticky flags for those items that are commonly used. For detailed information and web-based training on the food buying guide, use the link provided to USDA's information portal included on this slide. A common question regarding the use of the food buying guide is how do I choose the right food product from the multiple items listed in the guide? The food buying guide for child nutrition programs includes over 2,100 foods. Follow the steps described in the next slide to confidently select the right food in the as purchased form and the correct serving size per meal contribution column description. Information displayed in that row should be used to make food purchasing and production decisions. For the first step, find the correct food item by matching the description or specification of the food item in the form that it was purchased. For example, was the item purchased fresh, frozen, canned, or dried? In the next step, find the menu preparation description in the serving size per meal contribution column that closely matches your food item. Choices listed on this slide represent general categories of most of the options available. For example, for fruit and vegetables, you will need to find the item based on whether it is purchased whole, diced, sliced, raw, cooked, canned, and note how the product will be prepared for service, as with juice or light syrup, drained, heated or unheated, pureed, etc. For vegetables, check to also see if this will be provided in the form of a sauce, puree, or paste, which may greatly affect the yield of crediting the vegetable. For meats, determine if it is purchased frozen, raw, fully cooked, or roasted. Also determine if it is a canned item, like canned tuna or chicken. For eggs, check the item as purchased to see if it is packaged as shell whole eggs, fresh or frozen liquid eggs, or hard cooked eggs. Determine if it is pre-cooked, diced, quartered, or whole, as those factors will affect the measurement, serving size, and creditable yield. The cheese item should be selected not only by type, but also whether it is sliced, diced, or shredded. Continuing on to the next step, the additional information column may help determine the amount to purchase when the form served is different from the food as purchased form. In this example, fresh carrots without tops will be prepared to make carrot sticks. These fresh carrots will need to be peeled and trimmed, so not all of the purchased amount is edible. Therefore, for every pound of carrots as purchased in this example, only 0.7 pounds will be creditable as edible vegetable. In this example, if a recipe for a 1/2 cup serving of carrot and celery sticks were planned and a child nutrition program manager is purchasing carrots, 9.8 pounds per 100 students would be recorded on the production record next to the vegetable section. This would provide 1/4 cup carrot sticks as a red-orange vegetable. The 1/4 cup celery sticks needed for 100 servings to complete the 1/2 cup recipe will be explained on the next slide. The child nutrition program manager determines that the fresh celery already chopped into sticks is the best purchase option based on the latest bid for produce. To complete the carrot and celery sticks purchasing and documentation on the production record, the manager finds the appropriate description listed on this slide of celery, fresh, in the form of sticks, ready to use 1/2 inch by 4 inch. The purchase units for 100 servings for this product is 7.2 pounds. For every 100 students, the manager will purchase 7.2 pounds of celery to serve 1/4 cup celery with every 1/4 cup carrots to serve the whole carrot and celery stick portion. Note that while the fresh carrots that required preparation prior to service resulted in a loss of yield due to product loss and peeling, 1 pound of fresh carrots yields 0.7 pounds per 1 pound purchase. The additional information on the celery sticks that are ready to use yield 1 pound of creditable vegetable per 1 pound of purchased product. This is why fewer pounds of celery sticks will be listed on the production record than pounds of carrots, although both products will yield a fresh 1/4 cup serving. After using the food buying guide, the CNP manager knows that both the amount and type of carrots and celery to purchase and knows how to document the item description, the portion size in cups, and knows to document the total quantity prepared under column 5 in pounds. The CNP manager is now confident that the 100 students will be offered a 1/2 cup creditable vegetable with 1/4 cup red orange vegetable and 1/4 cup other vegetable crediting for vegetable subgroups for the week. The Institute of Child Nutrition developed a printable poster called Basics at a Glance. This reference should be used as part of meal planning along with production record documentation to ensure the correct utensils and smallwares are used based on standardized recipes and their yield and serving sizes desired for meal service. This resource should be used along with the USDA Food Buying Guide to ensure meals are reimbursable and served correctly. The Basics at a Glance provides recipe abbreviations, volume equivalents for liquids, equivalent weights, ladles to select based on portions for service, pan capacity, and a lot of other great information. As an example, a common error in service and documentation of serving sizes is in determining the correct scoop size to use for a 1/2 cup serving or other volume serving. If production staff is using standardized recipes, but the service staff is often running out of food, the wrong scoop or ladle size could be the problem. To prevent this kind of error, ask CNP production and service staff to use the scoop number guide on this poster to determine the correct scoop to use for the portion size listed on a recipe. Now that the use of the food buying guide and Basics at a Glance have been discussed, I would like to introduce the topic of crediting combination commercially processed foods for component credit for reimbursable meals for the child nutrition programs. Looking at the weight or nutrition facts label on a product like pizza, for example, will not provide the information required to determine the creditable meat alternate, bread grain, or vegetable credit. In order to document reliable crediting information and ensure valid documentation is available upon audit, A CN label or product formulation statement must be maintained on file, and specific documentation on the production record under column 2 is required. CN labels, fact sheets, and product labels provide a way for food manufacturers to communicate with school program operators about how their products may contribute to the meal pattern requirements for meals served under the child nutrition programs. The next slides will cover how and what information should appear on CN labels. Note that under column 2, a CN number, product formulation statement, or recipe name and number must be present in order for the food item and/or components to be creditable. Without this information, an SFA cannot prove that reimbursable meals were served to students for claiming purposes. The CN label provides a warranty against audit claims when the product is used according to the manufacturer's directions. School program operators may submit an original CN label, a photocopy, or a photograph of the valid CN label during an administrative review as acceptable documentation. CN labels that are laser printed on the product carton or cannot be easily removed may be photocopied while attached to the original product carton, or a photograph of the CN label while it is attached to the original product carton. CN labels that are photocopied or photographed must be visible and legible. When a valid CN logo and crediting statement is provided, state reviewers must not request a product formulation statement. So in terms of information provided by child nutrition labels, the CN label statement clearly identifies the contribution of a commercial product toward the meal pattern requirements based on the USDA's evaluation of the product's formulation. This information is documented on the production record to match the CN label meal pattern contribution. So let's talk about what information is included on a CN label. A CN label must include all of the following elements: a 4-point CN logo with a distinct border, a meal pattern contribution statement, a 6-digit product identification number, and a USDA authorized statement, which is use of this logo and statement is authorized by the Food and Nutrition Service, USDA. Finally, the month and year of approval must be included. If you receive an item with a CN label that does not include all of these requirements, please report it to the state agency. Because CN labeling costs money, there are companies that have put false CN labeling on items in the past to try to increase sales in the child nutrition programs without valid nutritionals for crediting. If an actual CN label, photograph, or photocopy of the valid CN label is not available for a product, school program operators may provide the bill of lading, which is an invoice, containing the product name plus one of the following to meet crediting information requirements. First, a CN label copied with a watermark displaying the product name and CN number, or second, an electronic copy of the CN label with a watermark displaying the product name and CN number provided by the vendor. Some commercially prepared combination foods may not have a CN label. This is because the CN labeling program is voluntary. If a commercially prepared combination food item does not have a CN label, contact the manufacturer for a product formulation statement. Like a CN label, a product formulation statement is a warranty for crediting of a combination food item toward the child nutrition program requirements. Keep in mind, a product formulation statement must be complete, accurate, and signed by a representative of the manufacturer in order to serve as proof of creditable food items for the child nutrition program. If a commercially prepared combination food item does not have a CN label or product formulation statement, the food item will not be creditable in child nutrition programs. A product formulation statement must be included on signed letterhead that demonstrates how the processed product contributes to the meal pattern requirements. Templates for documenting the meat alternates, grains, fruits, and vegetable components are available on the FNS website, which is linked on this slide. It's also available on the Child Nutrition Program website under the Forms section. A single product formulation statement may be utilized for products that contribute to more than one meal component. Creditable ingredients listed in the product formulation statements must match a description in the food buying guide for the school meals programs. SFAs should verify that the product formulation statement does not report a product's contribution to the meal pattern requirement that is greater than the serving size of the product. So for example, a 2.15 ounce beef patty may not credit for more than 2 ounces of meat alternate, or sometimes it could be claimed as a 3-ounce credit. The product formulation statement must assure that the credible components are in the finished product. For information at a glance on determining acceptable product formulation statements, please access the USDA tip sheet for accepting processed product documentation. The title in blue is a clickable link for ease in accessing the form. Next up for this training is a discussion regarding crediting of bread grains and determining if a bread grain is whole grain rich in order to document correct information on production records. USDA has published the whole grain resource for the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs. This resource will assist you in meeting the whole grain rich criteria. It can be downloaded from the CNP website and is also linked to the title at the top of this slide. As discussed earlier in this training, when whole grain rich requirements are met, be certain to check the whole grain rich box next to each bread grain item listed in the production record. Remember, when determining bread grain crediting for meal planning and documenting serving sizes on production records, that a 1 ounce equivalent for crediting in the meal pattern does not necessarily equal 1 ounce. Refer to the Exhibit A grains chart for crediting of bread grains by type. This is a copy of the Exhibit A for grains. And this is a chart that may be accessed online. And you may access it by clicking the link at the top of this slide. Groupings of bread grains determine the amount of credit per yield toward meal pattern requirements. In example C, you will see that a pancake or waffle is going to provide less creditable grain per ounce than a bagel, which will give 1 ounce credit for each 1 ounce product provided. Okay, so let's discuss flexibilities and waivers that are currently released. See in response number 90 provided waivers to allow specific meal pattern flexibilities from October 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. This is an added waiver to the meal pattern flexibilities allowed under SSO through September 30th, 2021. These meal pattern flexibilities were provided by USDA with the intention that SFAs will make every effort to continue to provide the school lunch and school breakfast meal pattern requirements without flexibilities. And this is to ensure that intended nutrition requirements for the USDA child nutrition programs are generally met. With justifications related to pandemic disruptions or alternative meal services, program operators will have the opportunity to submit waiver justifications to the state agency for approval of select flexibilities. These waivers are in the development phase, and a memo will be released to notify SFAs when these applications are open for submission. Given the understanding that waivers will be approved for these flexibilities on a case-by-case basis, note that the following specific requirements may be waived. Sodium requirements, the requirement that grains offered must be whole grain rich. In terms of the preschool menu, at least 1 serving of grain must be whole grain rich. A variety of vegetables must be offered from the vegetable subgroups, and the variety required in terms of providing fluid milk. Low-fat milk must be unflavored, and the requirement to plan menus and offer food components for specific age grade groups. For the final section of this training, the following slides cover how to access production record forms and instructions on how to complete them. Production record forms and instructions on the second page are linked on this slide. If you are having any difficulty with the links, please go to the CMP website under Memos and Resources, School Food Service Forms, and Menu Planning. There you will see a section with SFS 6 and instructions for breakfast and lunch. I would like to conclude the production record portion of this training by providing a sample completed production record for lunch. This reference provides an at-a-glance visual of a fully documented reimbursable meal. Please click on the sample production record for lunch included on this slide as a sample that you can use as reference for a lunch for a K-8 school. Here's what the final product of a production record should look like. The result of work in planning, production, service, and documentation of a lunch meal service, demonstrating reimbursable meals were served to 335 students is evident upon audit and review of this completed production record. This record also provides information on time and temperature control for food safety and HACCP, inventory withdrawal information, and how federal funding was utilized to provide reimbursable meals to students. I want to thank you for your time and attention during this training. It has been my pleasure to provide this overview of production records for the USDA Child Nutrition Programs. For any questions you may have, please contact the Division of Nutrition Support at Child Nutrition Programs at la.gov or call 225-342-9661. As a reminder, and in order to make sure that you do receive credit for this training, please go to the Louisiana Fit Kids website and access the calendar on the upper left-hand side. There's a link there that is available to complete the evaluation for production record training. Once you complete this training evaluation, you will receive an email within the next day or two with your credit for attending this course.
It actually may take more than a week, more like a week.
Okay, sorry about that. It may take a week. And as I can see, there aren't any questions in chat. So if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to use the contact information on this slide to request clarification or to discuss particular scenarios. Again, thank you so much for attending, and this will conclude our session.